Hi, guys. Welcome back. I'm Miki Hughes. This is Over the Edge, a podcast about anxiety where I do a pre-recording here in the studio and then I fix a whole lot in post. Sandra Battaglini is here and she is a comedian and she's spearheaded the C.A.S.C, which is the Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comedians. So I was really excited that she could be on and I'm going to bring her up right now.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I guess I just don't know where to start because you do so much. So I've been following since 2017 the CASC, and you started that.
Yes.
So you represent comedians, and you're going against and you're trying to get the government to cooperate and comedians to cooperate. And I couldn't imagine a more thankless job.
Yes, sometimes it's terrible, for sure.
Yeah, where are you at with the CASC right as of right now for and what is it exactly? Like it's fighting for rights for comedians.
Yeah, CASC is a lobby, like it lobbies for comedians' rights. That's really the premise of the organization. Um, where are we at right now? Like I was president up until December 2020. So I've stepped down. Monty Scott now is the new president, but I work on one of the issues that I'm like I haven't left the organization, but I needed to step down because I was, occupying multiple roles, president being one, spokesperson, executive director. It was a lot, and it was pretty much took over my life for the last 5 years. So currently, CASC has, still lobbying the government to have comedy recognized as an art form, and which is what I guess spurred this interview tonight, and from that recent article in the Globe and Mail. I also the one issue that I am continuing to work on. I mean, there are many of them, but the one I'm really passionate about is the export strategy. So in March, I attended the virtual trade mission to Germany. It was the International Creative Industries Trade Mission. So we were supposed to attend in person in June. We were going to Berlin, um, uh, Stockholm, and Amsterdam. And it's basically the strategy is to build like a highway, for Canadian comedians to, travel the world in a concerted, almost like a branded mission, to tell the world. I mean, to create that highway, and also to like start telling the world like of this great legacy of comedy that we have in Canada.
Yeah, what don't we what for example, what don't we have right now that you're looking to branch out to do? That we like with the highway and with the government. I really like the article in the Globe.
Yeah.
That is what sparked this.
Well, this is like it's a rights movement, like I said. So it's acknowledgement of the, the art form so that comedians can get access to government funding. And we've been back and forth. I feel like we're at an impasse now with the Canada Council for the Arts because they tell us, oh, you guys can apply, even though you remain unnamed. So when you go to apply for a Canada Arts Council grant, you have to identify under a field of practice. And currently, there's nowhere for comedians to do that. So they'll say, well, you can just sort of fit yourself into theater or literary arts or whatever. But those are not like it doesn't always work that way. Because even though, like, I mean, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, there's multiple places I could potentially submit to. But if I'm submitting for comedy, then it causes a real problem. So it is a rights and an acknowledgement of what we do. When we first launched, people would be like, is comedy art? There was this debate that would go on. And then I got to the point, I'm like, I don't care what you think, whether it is or it isn't, because I even had conversations with the people from the Canada Council for the Arts where, I guess in their mind, they thought, well, comedy is entertainment. It's not art. Right. And, and I was like, I've watched a lot of things that are funded by the Canada Council for the Arts, and I'll tell you, it ain't art. You know what I mean? So it's about being able to participate in the funding infrastructure of this country where all other artists, I mean, there are some artists that are looking for acknowledgement as well, but I mean, when you look at the music example in Canada, they started doing what we started doing 4 years ago, but 50 years ago, in around the 70s, when um, you know Canadian musicians were being played on the radio but not being compensated. So then there is no, like, it's no coincidence that we have people like the Drake or Justin Bieber or any of these huge pop stars. It was literally the result of a concerted effort by activists who were lobbying for recognition of Canadian voices. And our biggest problem is the United States, who completely dominate our media landscape.
Well, that's because
Like,
we can't go there. That's why I was like, it's not as easy to go back and forth. Like the thing with rights and like what the music industry did is now, there has to be so much Canadian content, etc. Are you
yes.
worried about with getting the rights also being regulated like the music industry could? Because right now it's just a free for all, um, pretty much.
How is it? What do you mean that the music industry is regulated? In which way?
Or I mean, well, so if they're like they would if there are any like rules or anything implemented, if there's no, you're just this is just like a grassroots. Just because right now it's totally a free for all. I mean, for uh, I don't like zero regulation, except for things that we can't do. So
Right.
like for example, like go to the States. Does the United States have a program or something that you're looking to replicate or have here in Canada?
No, they're looking to replicate what we have. Like, they're looking to replicate. We've been speaking to people around the world who just reached out to, not just reached out to us, but have reached out to us over the last couple of years to replicate like an association that we've created. Because the truth is that, while the thing that we lack in Canada is, in English Canada, is a star system and a real industry, truly. And I mean, when you think about it, it's like, what presence does Canadian media have on in the world? Very little. And especially now when you look at the fact that, most live venues have been shut down in, especially here in Ontario, and, obviously around the country. Who's criticizing our government? Who is, all we're getting is American content. So we've always been inundated with their content to the point where we think their politics is ours. And so, you know, what we want to replicate is, I mean, what's there to replicate from the United States? Like, obviously the star system, but there's very few countries in the world. Like they say, the only two countries in the world that don't have government funded arts is Hollywood and Bollywood. Otherwise, countries around the world have an arts infrastructure that funds, the arts.
Mhm. How do you see the pandemic again? Like how it because you touched in on that. So you've got, so the government, the comedians, you're like herding cats, and then on top of that, you're also dealing with the pandemic. How has that affected either advancements with CASC or even just with you personally?
Well, for me personally, I mean, not performing is a big one, right? Like, and having to pivot, into online stuff, which, is not all bad. I mean, I'm not, it's not like I do online shows. I'm not. I mean, I do some online shows. It's not, some people do them a lot. I don't go look for them. If somebody asks me to do them and it works out, I'll do it. But I mean, we don't have to. We could go into like how they're different from a live show, but it's pretty obvious.
It is pretty obvious. I did my first Zoom show the other day. It was very different. I would really have to pick up I think I would really have to pick up my game. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Do you think Zoom is gonna be here to stay for comedy, or do you think once we've got the stage back, the online stuff is because every night of the week you've got different shows
Well,
and
it depends how long this totalitarian regime is
okay.
going to exist.
So I could tell like right off the bat, I say like I love talking to comedians, and we've never spoken before, just a little bit before the show. And the reason why I love talking with comedians is because you answer questions in such an awesome way. I said, do you want me to set you up? Like, do you have a funny story or something that's happened? Like you don't have to do a bit, but maybe just something that's happened. And I was thinking like something funny, and you're like, well, actually, I'll let you say what happened. This was your funny.
Well, I know I shouldn't laugh, but like last Monday, my father just turned 90 and my mom's 74. And so he was falling, like he was on the way of falling, and she went to break his fall, and then they both fell. So I had to take them both to the emergency, and one was on one end and one was on the other. So I mean, that's after several months of both of them being in and out of the hospital because my mom had a couple of operations. My dad has, certain health issues. Obviously, he's 90, and dealing with the hospitals was just terrible, like crazy.
Was it packed in there?
No, no,
No.
no. In
So
fact,
do you have a funny story? You're like, yeah, my elderly parents fell and they've been hospitalized.
they didn't. Thank God they didn't. Like, thank God they didn't have to stay overnight. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, the best was when my dad was in the hospital. When was it? A couple months ago, and because he fell, like this guy falls, like it's hilarious. He falls and he hits his head, I don't know how many times, and he keeps getting back up. It's really quite sensational. And so we're in the emerge, and we're waiting for, I don't know, a CAT scan or something. And he goes, go tell the doctor. He goes, if they don't do this soon, we're gonna go to another hospital. Like it was like he was like, I'm threatening them with going to another hospital. I'm
I
like,
will take my business elsewhere. I will take my falling down and I will go somewhere else with it.
yeah, yeah.
Did they help him?
Well, oh yeah, they did. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Are you like you call with this totalitarian regime, are you pro-vaccine?
No.
So you're not pro
Okay.
mask either?
I mean, I'm not anti-vaccine. I believe in treatments that are efficacious. Really, but these ones, the absolute opposite.
Understanding we could have just gotten rid of this if it's airborne and taken care of it within a couple of weeks.
We did take care of it last year. I didn't like the masks, and I was like, well, we can't go out. And I was like, no,
when I was flying, that's when the rule came into effect, that whole quarantine thing on the way back. And
the COVID-19 is nothing more than it's not any
opinion to depleted than anybody that I know of that we've lost to, say, COVID. I'm watching all of this happen, and all of these statistics are coming out saying the suicide rates are low, and this or more people are. Well, how are 3 times more people calling these hotlines, but this isn't being reported as a crisis? And then Ford admits openly, I'll even post the link here, that he was classifying COVID suicides as COVID deaths.
I mean, what the yeah, they're doing that.
You say mainstream. Sorry, you say mainstream media. Can you qualify? Because there's far right, there's far left. So if you go to CNN or like Fox and Friends, I try to go a little bit more down.
Which is all of that, which is Fox, CNN, the Globe and Mail, the CBC, CTV, BBC, Washington Post, New York Times, all of it, Los Angeles Times. I mean, yeah, all of it. NBC, ABC.
The whole alphabet.
Right, Mediaset. I can go on. So mainstream, the ones that like literally have their. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna go nuts. So then I send an email to complain, not thinking anything's gonna happen. Next day, I get calls and emails, and the patient relation woman, my own community, in that we all kept quiet, right? Like all these grievances that existed in comedy had been around for decades. And so I just, I don't know if you know this, but I wrote a letter. The whole thing that started it off was I wrote a letter to the prime minister in my naive innocence but it was because all these things, like I really researched, and I was like, I got to write this letter. I have to get this off my chest.
Were you high at the time? Were you like, look, Mercury is in Renegade?
No. No. I mean, I researched all of the, what do we need to go to the United States? What do they need to come here? Like I did my research, I got my, I'm a researcher, literally, and so then what the hell was my point? I wanted to make a point about, that we had stayed quiet and not complained because we didn't want to lose work, and that's justifiable. But in our silence, the industry disappeared. And the same goes for the acting community. Like I remember when we started talking to ACTRA, like I said to them, I was like, look, I see that you guys lobby, but I don't, now I see it, but I don't see it all the time. He goes, because actors do not want to speak up. So in our silence and in our illusion, right? We bought
with
into the
that. I
illusion.
figure we could have used this time to unionize or something in the meantime. But
Oh,
everybody,
that's what CASC does. So it's like we were, you know, lobbying heavy the Department of Heritage. So in the pandemic, you see just how much more, like where all the holes were. And so if comedians couldn't apply for funding, it's like, it's funny. See how, you know, you're saying, look, like people are making more money now because of CERB. Well, how is that good?
that's what I mean. If it was a good program, like if you, yeah, it would just be so hard to.
I don't mean how is that good. I believe in a guaranteed income. I
That's
believe that everybody, every citizen should reap the rewards, the benefits of the nation. But like, but when you look, like I have other artist friends, and they just had to, like, you know, they just had to put in, you know, send a letter if they'd already received an arts grant. So not only were they making CERB money, they were able to, you know, keep their grants going. Well, so when comedians don't have any of that, then it, you know, it just this is all just exacerbating. But at the same time, while I say all this, it's exactly how
for
it
our
should
rights. I'm
be,
really curious to
because
see
this has all been
what comes out of it. Probably just more arguing within the community.
well,
Not sure.
yeah, there's a lot that's happened, and it's amazing. Like it really is amazing, you know. But thank God there was an organization to speak on comedians' behalf, because what would it have been like? You know, we really lobbied the government. Like we were in talks with them about including us in CERB. You know, there are some comedians who are like, "Oh, CASC does nothing." They would have included us anyways. It's like, how? I mean, who would have spoken up for them? Do you know what I mean? It's like it just
Right now, you're all we've got. You are all that we've got, and it's nice to have a very strong personality who's very outspoken, fighting for rights. Because I wouldn't even know how to go about that. Like
I
I,
didn't either. No idea. Honestly, I had no intention. Are you kidding me? You think I would be that crazy to do this? No, I'm like, but honestly, that's why it was so good to step away. Like, you know, my life is, you know, obviously there's been stresses and stuff, but to have moved away from it and not be the president, it's just like, it's just sometimes I catch myself and I'm like, oh my God, I used to be so, I
so
mean,
I'm guessing your stress level would probably. I don't know what your stress level was prior pandemic, or because you take on all these things. I mean, I have PTSD. I have high anxiety. I literally just talk to comedians about anxiety and mental health. How are you doing?
oh geez, up and down. I mean, you know, I meditate and do lots of yoga. And so like, and you know, I've got healers that I work with, so I'm always just trying to keep it up. But like, yeah, you know, I definitely, I think so many people, so many of us have PTSD and we don't realize it. So yeah, I get
You do.
anxiety. I don't,
Oh,
what's that?
oh, sorry, a little lag there. Like, what do you do, for example, when you feel like that you do have a lot of anxiety? I guess that's when you decide to
Yeah, like,
meditate.
I mean, I
Like,
meditate.
what's your stress level when it gets really bad?
Well, you know, I meditate in the morning, I meditate at night. So I just always try to keep myself buoyant, you know, not to get sucked in. But like, you know, today you know, I wasn't not feeling great. And so I just went and did a meditation. I practice like Kundalini yoga. So I do a lot of Kundalini meditations. I do
That
tapping.
requires.
Um,
Uh,
what's that?
that's a lot of self discipline to be able to. I mean, I try to
Oh,
meditate, but then I'm all like I'm just all over the place. So do you feel like you're like in a better position, like maybe emotionally, mentally post pandemic, or was it has it made it worse?
well, it really, so hard to, you know, do I feel more free as a person unless I do feel more free, although like when I get scared and like the anxiety, definitely, you know, there's anxiety and fear I'd never experienced. You know what I mean? Like I'd never experienced it. So then when I come out of it, I'm like, oh, I'm at another, you know what I mean? I'm at another level. So it's like, because again, like I follow all these gurus, and when you know all the gurus, everyone's saying the same thing, right? The spiritual teachers are all saying the same thing. It's like when you step out of the fear matrix, which is what this is their fear module, you know. So it's like,
I thought I was creating my events, like, when I step out of it. I
yeah,
don't know if my growth team is
we
strong or if
do.
I'm deteriorating. Sorry?
We do create our own events for sure, but I'm saying when all this fear is put on us, then you start to question, you're like, something's not fear right. Is not from God, or you know, it's not a that's not what, you know, yeah, that's not what we are. So
It's
fear
not
is
a
like fear is something that I've always had issues.
mat
No,
soup,
no, no, no,
would
no,
you?
no. I don't think so.
No, not now.
I mean, my last name is Battaglini.
So I gotta
People call me Bats. But I remember living in Sudbury. I grew up in Sudbury, and I remember sometimes bats would attach themselves to our house, and they were always just so like, I don't know. They just were like, wow, these creatures are insane. So I
I love them. I would
definitely
never get one out of a wet market though, especially then in China. So I'm gonna wrap this up here in a couple of minutes. I guess the big question for you would be if you so you do suffer from some anxiety. What advice would you give? Maybe three things that you would tell somebody if they called you and they were having a hard time or they were struggling with their mental health, from your plethora of gurus and star alignments and getting getting high and dealing with all kinds of combative things right now. What would you tell somebody as even like self-soothing,
breathe,
who maybe your advice?
like breathe, you know, stop, close your eyes, you know, focus on your third eye. Just, you know, get really just bring in, you know, like activate your pineal gland. And that's the gland that sits in the middle of your brain. Some people call it the God
Oh, wait,
molecule,
that was right.
but it really is like
Okay.
once the pineal gland is, yeah, it's like right here. And so
Yeah.
once that's activated, like when you activate your pineal gland, you feel positive, and you know you want to serve, you know, your community. When it's not activated, right, you're in fear or whatever. I would also say, like, you know, turn off all this shit. Like, because even like, you know, I was in Quebec because I was shooting a commercial, and I had a revelation. I'm like, if control is an illusion, then where do I go above that? And that's what I really look like. This is where I'm really going. I'm like, I experience fear, I see it, but it's like go above that. And like for people, it's like, yeah, go to the water, go to the trees, go to the woods, and you know, turn off all this shit because it's most of it's shit.
Yeah, I have to turn it off if I'm getting a little bit too if I'm breathing from my chest and not from my lungs and I realize that I'm probably low key hyperventilating, I just have to shut everything down. I want
Yeah.
to thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. You're absolutely fascinating. I didn't ask any of the questions that I had prepared. Uh, just because this has been so interesting.
I didn't think you'd
I,
talk about COVID. I was like, what?
I didn't think so either. I do want to mention that for a limited time, there is a free screening of The Mayor of Comedy. I watched it last night. It was absolutely hilarious. So if anybody wants to follow that link, it is in my it's in the write up as well. And if you'd like to donate to the Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comedians, the e-transfers are accepted at info@canadianstandup.ca. So I'm going to sign off before it cuts me off. And I just want to thank you again for being
My
here.
pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks. You have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.